The movie opens on the planet Yawucha Prime, where the Yawucha are prey to none but all other creatures are prey to them. A ship ventures around the planet, and aboard it, a creature named Quay is searching for his brother Dek. Quay goes to find him, discovering that Dek is hiding behind a magical cloak. As Quay tries to locate him, Dek suddenly attacks, and a fierce fight begins between the brothers. Dek tries to prove that he has become stronger and attacks Quay with full force. But Quay easily defends himself and defeats Dek by making him fall into a trench. When Dek reappears, he believes he's ready to become a Yaucha. But Quay tells him he still has much to learn and leaves. As Dek roams through the ship, he sees a toy that Quay had kept for him. Quay tells him it is a gift, his very own spaceship, and explains that to become part of a clan, he must kill a prey and bring it home or never return. As Dek searches for his prey, Quay spots the planet Janna, known as the Death Planet and home of the unkillable creature Kalisk. Dek declares that he will kill Kalisk because their father thinks he's weak, and he wants to prove himself. Quay warns him that failure means death, but Dek is adamant about his mission. Before they can leave for planet Jenna, their father arrives in a spaceship. He asks Quay why Dek hasn't been killed yet, calling him the weakness of their clan, and orders Quay to kill him. Their father then traps Dek with one of his gadgets. As Quay is about to kill Dek, he instead destroys the gadget and transports Dek into the spaceship, locking him inside. Quay then fights his father for betraying him. Their father possesses magical powers that allow him to become invisible, and he overpowers Quay with his abilities. From inside the ship, Dek watches as his father overpowers and kills Quay. Before dying, Quay launches the spaceship toward planet Janna using a remote control. Dek watches helplessly as his brother is killed before his eyes, hearing his final words, "Bring it home." The spacecraft departs for its destination. As the spacecraft approaches planet Janna, stones in its orbit strike the hull, waking Dek from his sleep. When the ship descends and enters the planet's atmosphere, it's suddenly attacked by a creature, causing it to crash into a dense forest. Enraged by his father's brutality and Quay's death, Dek gathers his courage, looks around, and vows to bring victory home for Quay. He begins analyzing the weapons he has for his mission. But as he does, the roots of nearby trees start to move, making him alert. When he turns to investigate the sound, the tree roots attack him. His weapon falls, but he manages to retrieve it and slice through the attacking roots before escaping their reach. Ahead of him lies the vast, dangerous expanse of planet Janna. Later, Dek bandages his wounds with large leaves and continues his mission. As he walks, he sees the skeletons of dead animals. Even the vegetation of this planet is dangerous. Eventually, he comes across a girl named Thea trapped in thick bushes. Suddenly, a creature throws a stone, causing nearby plants to attack. Thea suggests she can help him, but Dek replies, "Yaucha hunts alone and charges through the attacking plants." Eventually, one of the plants hits him and he starts to feel nauseous. Thea pleads for help and Dek throws an object toward her. He then collapses and is about to be devoured by a creature, but Thea saves him and kills the beast before Dek faints. When Dek wakes, he finds Thea and asks what happened to her legs. Thea explains that she was created and deployed by Weyandutani for research purposes. Humans couldn't survive on this planet. She says that many Yawucha have come before but were all killed by Kisk. She claims she saw Kalisk and can guide Dek to its den if she agrees to take her with him. Meanwhile, Dek's navigation system is destroyed. Thea tells him she can be useful to him as a survival tool on Janna since she knows the planet better than he does. Dek agrees and takes her along. As they travel, Thea keeps talking and asking him various questions, but Dek ignores her. While passing a narrow stream of water, Thea explains that she has studied predator organisms extensively and understands them. Dek uses a route to tie Thea to himself so they won't be separated. As a storm approaches, they decide to rest. Dek asks her how long she has been on Janna, and Thea replies that it has been 2 years since her team built a base there. She thought her friend Tessa would return as they worked together. One day, while exploring Janna, a Kalisk attacked, separating them. Thea says she still believes Tessa is alive. Meanwhile, Tessa had indeed survived and returned to her base, though damaged and with her mission incomplete. She was reassigned to acquire the XX0522 specimen and retrieve bioweapons, and she was also warned about the Yawucha. When she wakes up, she learns that Thea is with one. At the same time, Dek grows hungry and prepares to hunt a creature, but he gets wounded by razor grass. A small creature suddenly appears and approaches them, then runs off behind other animals. Dek chases them, jumping between trees, but falls and nearly lands on more razor grass. Later, Dek suddenly attacks the small creature and a fight breaks out between them. Vaya signals Dek that a wild creature is approaching, and Dek immediately grabs his weapon and hurls it, slicing the beast into 2 pieces. He survives the encounter, and the small creature, surprised, watches him. Suddenly, a monobug attacks, capturing both Dek and the small creature in its arms. As they are about to be devoured, the small creature manages to help Dek and Thea escape, but falls in the process. All 3 of them now try to flee from the monobug, which chases the small creature and captures it again. Dek follows through the trees, leaps down, and attacks the 4-legged monster, ultimately defeating it. Meanwhile, Tessa and her team are searching for Thea and come across traces of Yaucha blood. Tessa and her team possessed advanced weapons and destroyed all the roots. Meanwhile, Thea, Dek, and the small creature sat by a fire that night. Thea said their trio could make a good team, while Dek remarked that he liked the part where he sliced the creature's head off. Dek showed kindness toward the small creature for saving his life and gave it some food. Dek explained that he didn't have a clan. He told Thea he once had a brother, but his father killed him for being weak. Dek said he was on this planet for Kalisk. When he asked Thea why she was here, she said she was searching for Tessa. Later, Tessa found Dek's abandoned ship and entered it. As she looked around, she discovered his weapons and instruments. The next day, Dek was ready to leave, but Thea insisted they couldn't leave the small creature behind, as she had named it Bud. Dek replied that a Ya hunts alone and took Thea with him, leaving Bud behind. As they neared a waterfall, Dek found one of Kalisk's teeth. Thea, upset about leaving Bud, asked why his father had killed his brother. Dek told her that his brother had died protecting him because he was considered the clan's weakness, and now he wanted to prove his strength. Thea then told him a story about wolves on Earth, how the alpha protects the pack rather than killing or hunting the most. But Dek responded that he would be the alpha who kills the most. They continued forward through the vast wilderness of Janna. Eventually, they reached Kalisk's den, where they saw hundreds of dead bodies. Thea said Kalisk had destroyed their mission and found her mechanical legs nearby. She began the process of reattaching them, and soon she would be able to walk again. Thea thanked Dek for his help. Dek said that today he would become a Yaucha, honor Quay, and bring Kalisk home. Thea told him he needed to leave because she had called Tessa and they were on their way. She revealed that her company's mission was to capture Kalisk. Dek grew angry, realizing they wanted to steal his prey. He demanded to know where Kalisk was and declared that no one could stop him before leaving. Later, Dek found gasoline and set the base on fire. Inside, Fire heard the terrifying sounds of Kalisk approaching. A fierce battle broke out between Dek and Kalisk. Dek used his agility to cut Kalisk down, but Kalisk regenerated his limbs, overpowered Dek, and threw him aside like a rag doll, shattering Thea's legs into pieces. Dek struggled to compete with Kalisk, but continued to fight swiftly. Thea joined the battle, shooting her gun. Dek chained Kalisk, ignored Thea's pleas, and ran up Kisk's tail, leaping onto his head and slicing it off. But Kalisk regenerated once more and attacked again. At that moment, Tessa arrived and threw an object that froze both Kalisk and Dek, capturing them. Inside her facility, Dek was locked up by Tessa. Realizing she wasn't Taya, the real Thea was under Tessa's control. Tessa scanned Dek's mind to discover his purpose, but couldn't find an answer. She told him he would now work for them, enraging Dek. Tessa revived Thea, who was happy to see her sister. Tessa said their mother would be pleased that they had captured both Kalisk and Dek. Dek, furious, believed Thea had betrayed him. Tessa injected a substance into Dek, while Taya protested that the Yawa were not suitable for their experiments. But Tessa continued altering Dek's brain, taking samples for research. Thea tried to stop Tessa, shutting down the machine and saying this wasn't their mission. Thea pleaded that they could still be sisters, but Tessa replied that her mother had given them emotions only to explore and exploit creatures on different planets. Thea argued that Dek was different, but Tessa said she came only for Kalisk. That last time, it had cost her dearly to save Thaya. She swore not to make the same mistake as the Yaucha's brother and ordered her men to box Thaya. As one of the men worked nearby, Thea told the man to explain Dek's device. The man ordered Thea to open it and look inside. As he did, the device exploded, allowing Thea to escape. She screamed for Dek to run as Dek fell into the water below. Meanwhile, Thea and Tessa returned to their base. Dek reached his spacecraft, treated his wounds using his gadgets, and grew furious about being weak and betrayed. Suddenly, the spacecraft powered up, and Deck discovered his brother's armor, the symbol of the wolf, inspiring him to gather all the natural resources he could find and forge them into new weapons. As he walked, he discovered trails of Kalisk's blood and Bud's as well. At the base, Thea was locked in a containment box. Deck reactivated her mechanical legs remotely. Deck then infiltrated the base, while Thea's legs distracted the soldiers. He killed them one by one, with Bud assisting him in slaying many soldiers as well. Meanwhile, Tessa was preparing to load Kalisk for experimentation, claiming that the Yaw was a defective specimen and falsely reporting that Deck was dead. Deck continued his silent rampage, killing every soldier who crossed his path with brutal precision. Thea's detached legs managed to rescue her, but accidentally alerted nearby guards, pretending to deactivate as Deck finished off the soldiers. Thea then suddenly attacked and killed several more enemies alongside her legs. Tessa was now ready to begin her experiment on Kalisk. When Deck arrived to rescue Thea, Thea was touched that he came back for her. Bud appeared as well, revealing that he was Kalisk's child and that the captured Kalisk was his mother. Thea urged Deck to freak Kalisk and raise the alarm. With only 20 minutes left before launch, soldiers rushed to find Deck, who sat quietly, planning his strike. He then initiated a surprise attack, slaughtering soldiers using the natural weapons he had crafted. Tessa appeared in a massive machine and launched heavy attacks on Deck, overpowering him. Meanwhile, Thea tried to gain access to the control system using Tessa's biometric data, but was interrupted by one of Tessa's men. Thea pretended to be Tessa, tricked him, and killed him when she had the chance. Deck hid and strategized. As Tessa searched for him, suddenly he ambushed him from above, clinging to her machine. At the same time, Kalisk broke free and attacked Tessa. Deck damaged the wires while Tessa threw a freeze bomb at Kalisk, but Deck shielded her and Kalisk destroyed the machine, killing Tessa before returning to Bud. Deck approached Kalisk and gently touched her as if it was saying, "Thank you for saving her child." But suddenly, Tessa, barely alive, activated one last freeze device that destroyed Kalisk. The explosion threw everyone aside. Bud was devastated watching his mother die. As Tessa aimed her laser at Thea to kill her, Deck struck from behind, killing Tessa, while Bud avenged his mother by ripping off Tessa's head. Deck hugged Bud, and together, they returned to Yawucha Prime. Upon returning, Deck told his father he came for his cloak and handed him the severed head of Kalisk. His father ordered his soldiers to kill him, but Deck slaughtered them in a single blow. A final battle began between father and son. Deck's father overpowered him using his cloak's invisibility, but Deck had an idea. He started the ship's engines, stirring up dust and revealing his father's outline. Deck then landed the final blow, killing his father. As his father lay dying, he told Deck that he had now earned the right to lead the clan. But Deck replied, "I have my own clan," and Bud devoured his father. Deck, Thea, and Bud stood together as Deck retrieved his cloak, now a true Yaucha. Suddenly, a ship descended from the sky. It was his mother's. The movie ends.